Welcome to the Lost Media Chronicles, a show which discusses various lost movies, music, art, and in this month's case, video games! Okay, I know I'm late on this one. I was suffering from a cold. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. When you think Nintendo, what are the titles that usually come to mind? Pokemon, Mario, Zelda, Pikmin, Kirby, right? While those franchises are fun, today we're gonna be talking about one very particular series, and that's Mother/Earthbound. Released in 1995 in North America, it was the first taste Westerners got of this strange, quirky world featuring bizarre aliens, enemies, and characters. It was a role-playing game unlike anything most audiences had seen before. However, it was far from the first nor the last game in the series, but for years it was the only game of the series that got a release in the States. There's actually a rich history behind this series, and with its history comes a lot of lost media. So how did Earthbound come to be? It was the second game in the series, with the first being Mother, which saw release in Japan in 1989. The single-player role-playing game was modeled off of the Dragon Quest series, but took place in modern times, a then unique idea. Series writer/director Shigesato Itoi pitched the idea to Shigeru Miyamoto, who originally turned it down. After further coaxing, Miyamoto went ahead and gave Itoi a development team. Now this was a bit of a controversial move, as Itoi was a pretty big celebrity in Japan at the time. He was an actor and essayist, a well-respected personality, and it stirred up a lot of media buzz. Miyamoto didn't want to make it seem like Nintendo was selling out to celebrities. However, Itoi's idea of using characters in a modern, quirky setting set it apart from other RPGs, and Miyamoto gave it a shot. Upon its release in Japan, Mother was a huge hit. Fans admired its unique approach and atmosphere. Nintendo intended to give the game an American release, and it got a full English translation that was in its final phases before they pulled the plug. For years, this English version wasn't just lost media, people didn't know it existed. This translation had extensive work, as Nintendo of America had to clean it up to meet their licensing standards, as well as make it more understandable to an English-speaking audience, since it was littered with references that Westerners wouldn't get. It wasn't just a translation, it was a localization. It was deemed financially unsound to release, with the NES being on its last legs. In January of 1998, someone appeared on a video game forum with pictures of a cartridge that they were looking to sell. It was a prototype. After switching hands many times, one purchaser actually took the cartridge and uploaded the ROM online. It was the English localization of Mother. This ROM was traded throughout the emulation community. 17 years later, the English dub was officially released by Nintendo on their Wii U Virtual Console under the title Earthbound Beginnings. After the success of Mother, Itoi started working on a sequel. This time, Nintendo gave him a larger development team and budget. The project moved from the Famicom to the Super Famicom as the new generation set in. Itoi grew incredibly ambitious, throwing references to dreams and experiences he had as a child, including some morbid themes. The ambition proved to be troublesome as the production got pushed back repeatedly. Then Satoru Iwata joined the team, which helped simplify the production issues. Nintendo tried to cancel the title many times, fearing that Itoi's ambitions were going to be fruitless. Mother 2 was officially released in August of 1994 in Japan. This time, the game saw a release in the US under the title Earthbound. While the game was an expected success in Japan, it was a different story in the West. It got a laughable marketing campaign, which included a slogan that said, "This game stinks." Despite the praise it got from the few people who played it, the game's failure to catch on left Nintendo hesitant to release any more games in the series outside of Japan. To give you an image of how little this game sold in the West, to this day, carts go for as much as $200 without the box. Of course, demand has since been curbed, with the game being released on the Virtual Console on the Wii U in 2013. Now, there's not a whole whole lot of lost media regarding this game. There's images and footage shown to us from a video that Itoy did in 1992 featuring a beta build of the game, but these are just subtle differences in design and layouts. There's a few unused sprites and elements, but nothing major or really significant. The look and feel of the game is mostly the same as the final product, which is surprising since this is a full 2 years before its release. Now, the success of this game in Japan meant that Itoy wanted to work on a third installment. However, this wasn't without its snags. A new generation of consoles came into play, which involved a jump into 3-dimensional graphics. Many fans were concerned with how the game would fit into the new age of polygons. As production moved from the Super Famicom to the N64, Itoy had to work with the troubles of having zero experience in the third dimension. On top of that, the team wanted the game to be huge and immersive. With the limit of the N64's processing, it was resolved that the game would be released on the doomed N64 disk drive. This peripheral allowed for games to be expanded on a disk. While a few releases were made, the system's failure led to the cancellation of many titles. Earthbound 64/Mother 3 was no exception. Eventually, stress from the troubled production caused the team to abandon the 3D version of the game and instead focus on what eventually became Mother 3, released for the Game Boy Advance in 2006. Now, the Nintendo 64 version of Mother 3 was playable at one point. A demo was presented at E3 1999 and got praise from critics and fans. The graphics and mechanics were given high marks. People were genuinely excited for it. The story was also much darker. Itoy made it a goal to, quote, betray the player with the writing. The game was 30% playable at its E3 appearance and 60% complete at the time of its cancellation. That's a substantial way through the production. To this day, no prototypes have surfaced, though many fans have made erroneous claims to owning it. A playtester named Brandon Sector claimed to have once had a prototype, but he believes it ended up at the hands of HAL Laboratories or Nintendo. Reportedly, this prototype would let you play through the first chapter, and then it would crash. Hopefully this prototype wasn't disposed of or lost. The only footage that survives of this game is from E3 1999. No other footage has ever surfaced, though there is still a little bit of hope on the horizon. A Kickstarter was made for a documentary about the Earthbound/Mother games that was meant to follow the story of these intriguing games while focusing on the underground market for unfinished and unreleased video games. Perhaps, with permission, whoever releases this documentary will be able to get some formerly unseen footage. Which leads me to my conclusion. Why is it a big deal that Earthbound has any lost media? Well, of course its quirky atmosphere, modern setting, fun gameplay, and excellent music are enough. However, there's something bigger going on here. These are games that only became part of the pop culture osmosis years after their release. Good word of mouth and the lost media community were able to get these games a second life. While the mission is far from over, it's a testament to what could be achieved if the fanbase likes something hard enough. Nintendo listened with open arms and gave people what they wanted. That's a rare achievement for lost media seekers, and it shows what we can do when we're at our best. That about does it for this episode. Join us next time when we talk about the first hardcore erotic game ever made. I'm not kidding. See you later.